episode 2 of the Outer Voices review. This is your host, Keem. And I hope everybody enjoyed my Black Klansman review from the last time. Today I went to go see a movie that I had my doubts about for reasons. Today's movie I went to see was the Happytime Murders, a film by Ryan Henson, son of the famous, very, very famous, and beloved Jim Henson. So, first of all, before I get started on my review, I would say this review is in two parts. Spoiler free in the beginning, non-spoilers, spoiler free in the beginning, and then spoilers after the first opening part. I will let you know when spoilers begin, so if you want to go see the movie, you can stop listening there. But first I will give the spoiler free review of it, of the Happytime Murders. So, first off, before I even go into the spoiler-free review, I want to say I am a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of the Muppets. I like puppets in general. I grew up on Sesame Street. I have my own Muppet, quote unquote, that I got for Christmas. Like I said, huge fan of huge fan of Muppets, and I'm a huge fan of the Henson family. In general, I am a huge fan of the puppeteers in this movie. Ryan Henson, Bill Beretta, Kevin Clash, who have been Muppet performers for years and years and years and years. And you will recognize their voices, because, like I said, if you've ever watched Sesame Street, the Muppets, these were the people who were doing it before Disney took over. Really, they did it some when Disney took over the Jim Henson Company, but they don't. I don't think Kevin Clash does it anymore. I'm not sure about Bill Beretta, and I know Ryan Henson doesn't do perform for Disney anymore. But with that being said, so the movie is a dark comedy / noir film starring Melissa McCarthy, Maya Rudolph, Joe McHale, I can't remember the guy's name, but Stanley from The Office, Elizabeth Banks, standard comedy fare, and it takes place in a world where humans and puppets live side by side, and there's a series of murders that take place that bring in a former puppet cop turned private investigator who must team up with his former partner, played by Melissa McCarthy, to solve the Happytime Murders. So I'm going to go ahead and give my whatever out of 10 review for the movie. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. The movie was less than mediocre, not completely awful, not terrible. There were some laughs to be had, but the laughs were not consistent. There were a couple times I busted out laughing there, and those were very few. There was a couple times I chuckled, but the laughs just didn't keep coming. I feel like this movie was very, very much wasted. It wasted its premise. It wasted the comedic actors in it. It wasted the puppeteers, because I've followed these performers before, and they could have done so much better. It could have been a lot funnier. This movie is very much wasted potential. It wastes everything that could have made it great. It wastes. The performances were very so-so. Everything was just mediocre. Very, very mediocre. Which is a shame, because I had my doubts about it, because this was Ryan Henson's attempt to present a adult version of what he had with the Muppets. And it's something I've been wanting for years. The Muppets always seemed like the more adult turn to the Sesame Workshop and Sesame Street, and I had been wanting something more adult when it comes to them anyway. And of course, with them being owned by Disney, that wasn't going to happen. So this was Ryan Henson's chance to test out these waters, and it was not. It was executed very, 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 very poorly. It just we're not. The most disappointing thing was it has like I said, it had a very interesting premise, and the premise had a very similar premises had been done. The premise is very similar to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, just replacing puppets with tunes, or tunes with puppets. Sorry, it's very similar to I can't remember that other Greg the Bunny. If you ever watched the, I think it was a Fox show, which became an IFC show, but it's very similar to Greg the Bunny, which both of those movies, Roger Rabbit's a movie, of course, which was incredible. Roger Rabbit's a classic. Greg the Bunny was very, very, very funny, at least to me, and it was done in a style of raunchiness very similar to Team America World Police, which I also thought was very, very funny. Team America World Police is one of my favorite movies. So there are movies that are good examples of how this premise should be done, how this movie could have been done, and be good. This movie did none of those things. It like I said, it's just an utter disappointment. Like I said, not terrible, just not something I would go to the movies and see. I would have waited if I hadn't seen it to come out on Redbox or come out on Netflix. And if I'm bored, watch it. I feel like this movie also probably would have been better if it was done as a series, to draw out the plot a little bit. The plot felt kind of rushed. You could see it coming a mile away. It's supposed to be in a comedy in the noir style, but the thing about noir is, with noir, there's generally a sense of mystery, putting together a puzzle. But the puzzle was so simple that you could see it coming a mile away, and that's not something you want. Like I said, everything about this movie was wasted potential. The potential was there, but it was just completely overlooked. And there were quite a few things that were done just for raunchiness sake, that felt forced. Like they were trying to force laughs by just doing something that's off the wall. And that just didn't work. And there's one scene in particular that should have been way funnier than it was, but was not. So yeah. This episode is going to be a lot shorter than the other one, because I have a lot less to say about this movie than I did about Black Klansman. But as I was stated, 4 out of 10. You can skip it. You can very much skip it. If you want to see it, wait for it to come on the Redbox. Don't go to the movies. Don't even waste your movie pass. If you're paying for movie pass already, and getting your little whatever, go get your three movies a month and spend it elsewhere. There are better movies out there. But yeah, 4 out of 3. So that 4 out of 10. So that ends the spoiler-free review. Now let's get into spoilers. So, the movie takes place in a world where humans and puppets live side by side, but puppets are treated as second-class citizens. The movie it's a very super heavy-handed metaphor for racism. It's done, once again, it's done poorly, not because of like them trying to the message. The message could have been in there, but it should have been a little more subtle. Like I said, it's too heavy-handed. It's too like on the nose, and it feels like it's not how racist. It's how people stereotypically think racism works, where everyone is openly racist, which generally isn't how it happens. There are people who are openly racist, but racism is usually more subtle, especially on a systematic level. So they play that in a very obvious, very heavy-handed way, which does not do well for the movie. So in this world where puppets are treated like secondhand citizens, there's this cop played by Bill Beretta, puppet cop former puppet cop who's not a public investigator, who in standard noir style has a secretary played by Maya Rudolph, and Maya Rudolph is always a joy. She's so silly, so she's enjoyable in most things she's in. Secretary played by Maya Rudolph. He's a former cop who's kicked off the force, and now all puppets are banned he was the first puppet cop. Then all puppets are banned from the force. After his partner is taken hostage, he shoots at the puppet. He misses, accidentally kills an innocent bystander in front of the bystander's daughter, puppet bystander's daughter, and his human partner testifies against him. He gets kicked off the force. Yada yada yada. He ends up where he is now. His human partner was played by Melissa McCarthy, gets a puppet liver from the shot, from the bullet, and cause whatever, and blah 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 blah. But it opens up with him coming into his office with the secretary. He has a new client who is a puppet woman who refers to her. She's named Sandra, who refers to herself as a sexual Ima. And the joke is, if she's around something sexual, I'ma fuck it. Which is fucking stupid ass joke. But this is your standard noir like trope of the femme fatale comes in with a case and whatever, and the hard-boiled detective has to go solve it, and twists and turns and whatever. Just standard noir fare, played up in a comedic context with puppets. He goes to his investigation leads him to a puppet porn theater, which is run by this vulture, and in there he sees like this former star of this show called the Happytime Murders. And this is where when I was talking about earlier, it's like raunchiness played for laughs, which just does not land. In the puppet porn shop, a porn theater, there's like in the back of like a octopus milking a cow for like puppet porn, and I should have laughed. Should have been funny. It wasn't. And there was another interaction of a porn movie being showed where this was a puppet dog doming a dude while he's tied up, and once again, it should have been funny. It was not. It was just all these just very easily missed laughs, easily missed things that should have been funny, but it was just forced. It was way too forced. So somebody comes in, kills everybody in the puppet shop. Kills everybody in the porn shop. The police arrive, including his former partner, who he has animosity with. They argue back and forth because whatever. He goes about his business, goes and meets his brother, who is also a former star in the Happytime Murders, and you learn, the Happytime show or whatever, Happytime Gang or whatever, and he tells him about the murder and his brother. So this was actually interesting. So on the racism thing, his brother was basically a sellout. He had bleached his skin, so he can appear more human. Just like, black people will bleach their skin to be more white, or He gets a nose job to get a more human-like nose. He's a sellout, and that's played for whatever to build more into this racism narrative. And things go on, and the brother reveals that the Happytime Gang show is going into syndication, and all the cast members are going to get paid. And all this happens. The movie just keeps kind of rolling on. Eventually, the brother is killed by a pack of dogs, which forces the police chief, played by Stan from The Office, who is as expected, who makes him and Melissa McCarthy's character team up to solve the murders, because they realize that the murderer is targeting former cast members of the Happytime Gang. I don't even want to continue to go on with like what happens in the movie. Basically, they keep going to different members of the Happytime Gang to find clues. Shit happens. The cast members die off one by one, and eventually it starts to look as if Phil, the puppet detective, is the one doing it. He's basically being framed, and an FBI agent comes in, played by Joe McHale, and they do a lot of dumb jokes with this character too. That is like seeking out Phil, the puppet detective, for as being a suspect in these murders, because he's at every murder scene. You also find out that because of her puppet liver, Melissa McCarthy's character is a sugar addict, because puppets in this world, puppets use sugar to get high. And she's a sugar addict, which is another very heavy-handed theme of like drug addiction and cops getting addicted to drugs and yada yada yada. Like I said, every serious trope in this movie is played heavy-handed, and that doesn't work very well. But she's a sugar addict and all this stuff, and she's addicted to that drug. So the puppet woman from the beginning, the femme fatale, comes in, and this is the scene I was again talking about in the I was talking about in the non-spoiler review. So the puppet lady comes in, and she's revealing more and more, and she seduces Philip while the FBI agent's outside, and they have puppet sex, which should have been one of the funniest scenes in the movie, because, I mean, it's puppet sex. I mean, when anybody thinks of that, they think this is going to be fucking hilarious. And it just did not land. It did not land. I groaned while it was happening. They were having sex all over the room, like animated, this very like ridiculous puppet sex all over the room. While the FBI agent and Maya Rudolph's secretary character are outside like listening, because they hit the intercom while they're in the office having sex. And the only funny part of the scene was at the end, there's a fucking money shot, and the money shot is silly string, and it shoots all over, like starts shooting all over the walls and stuff, and all over the glass on the window, and all this shit. And that actually made me laugh, because that's silly. That's fucking silly, and that made me laugh. But even that part went on too long, and until the joke wasn't as funny anymore. But the femme fatale leaves in front of the FBI agent. Sandra, I think is what her name is. She leaves, and the FBI agent tells him he's a suspect, and he jumps out the window and escapes. There's also another plot of, Elizabeth Banks plays another member of the Happytime Gang. She's the only human and she feels like old flame, and she's like a stripper. So he goes to see her to, get her protection, to get make sure she's protected because they're targeting members of the Happytime gang. And they have a conversation, little thing about their past and whatever. She gets in her car, and of course, car blows up. She's also dead, allegedly. He gets arrested by. Actually, he doesn't get arrested. The police are still coming after him. He has no choice but to go to Melissa McCarthy's character's apartment, and she goes in her apartment, and she's got sugar everywhere, and she's passed out, kind of not OD'd, but close to it, I guess. He cleans up her apartment. They make amends for. They start making amends for what happened with them. And they go to try to find the last two members of the Happytime gang because they think, oh well, these guys must be the ones responsible. Also, there's another member that gets killed or whatever. Not important. And these two characters were cousins on the in real, these two public characters were cousins, and they got married and had these inbred children. Another joke that just did not land. They get there and they're dead. The cops arrest Philip. You find out that the femme fatale has, of course, set him up. And she is the wife of Jenny, his old flame that was killed, and she set him up. And there's also a Basic Instinct joke where the puppet, femme fatale, shows her vagina to not vagina, but shows her crotch to the FBI agent, and she's got purple pubes or whatever. And like I said, these jokes just were not landing. You find out she's setting Philip up. Melissa McCarthy's character gets suspended because she defends him. She teams up with Maya Rudolph's secretary character to go searching for the femme fatale. They figure out a whole plan, but lo and behold, all the evidence gets wiped out, which forces Melissa McCarthy's character to break Philip out of jail so they can go confront the femme fatale as she's leaving the country. Because of course she is. Because this is the plot line was so simple to follow, was so easy to figure out that, once again, it just wasn't good. It just wasn't. They get to the airport. They discover, lo and behold, that Jenny is not dead. She faked her death so they can get all the money and go. The femme fatale Sandra knocks out Jenny. And to take the money, she gets ready to leave. Melissa McCarthy's character follows her onto the plane. She takes her hostage, just like the mirror in before when Phil's character, the puppet, has his partner's hostage again. He has to make the shot, but of course, in the beginning he missed it. But this time he hits her, kills Sandra. Everyone gets reinstated. Phil's character has Maya Rudolph's character. To go out with them, and out for a date, which is, they play that that's some big moment between the two characters, but they never play up the romance during the movie except for briefly. So this moment of him asking out Maya Rudolph doesn't mean anything because they never play up that romance. They never play up the unrequited attraction. Nothing. But everyone's reinstated. They repeal the rule for no puppets on the police force. He gets his job back, and end of story. And that was it. That movie wasted so much everything. It wasted so much of everything. It was predictable. The jokes didn't land. It had such a great premise. Even the themes and tropes of racism and drug addiction could have worked if they were more subtle. but they weren't. They were just thrown in. Um, and this movie is very much wasted. It's very wasted. And I keep saying that over and over, but it's wasted potential. Especially when other movies have done similar things. Very, very similar things, but have done them much better. The plot is very similar to Roger Rabbit. Very similar to Roger Rabbit. But Roger Rabbit did it so much better. With so much more nuance. The plot is also similar. It was similar to instances were similar to Greg the Bunny. Greg the Bunny was a straight up comedy, but did it much better. The jokes that landed in Greg the Bunny, the raunchiness or whatever, was done in a way that made the jokes land. This one did not have the jokes landing. Even the puppet sex scene that was done, which was supposed to have been funny, and honestly, it was probably pitched as the highlight of the movie, was done much better in Team America World Police, where it was, instead of being pitched as over the top, like ridiculous puppet sex scene, it was pitched kind of serious, kind of meant to be sexual, which made what was happening more off the wall, more funny, made you laugh. This did not. Let's say it was very much a waste of comedic actors. Like I said, Maya Rudolph is delightful in most things she does. She was wasted here. Melissa McCarthy was wasted. Joel McHale was extremely wasted. It's a waste of the Muppet performers. Bill Beretta actually does a pretty good job as Phil. Phil was probably and he's the main protagonist, of course, but he's the only character that at least I thought was a good performance. Which wasn't a god to work with. It was not a lot to work with. I take it back. There was another good performance, but it was very brief. It was another member of the Happytime gang, like Coach Leroy or something, and who had fallen on hard times and become a gang member or whatever, like a gang leader or whatever. And like, you get a somewhat heartfelt performance, and I'm thinking that was from Kevin Clash. It feels like Kevin Clash, but those performances did not save this movie. There were a few laughs and a few gems in there that made me chuckle, that made me laugh, but it wasn't enough to keep my interest at all. I found myself going and checking my phone during the movie, which is it was something I don't really do unless I'm checking the time or there might be an emergency. There weren't a lot of people laughing. There were a lot of people in there anyway. But there weren't a lot of people laughing at the movie. There were like 2 people laughing during the whole thing. Like I said, I am a huge fan of puppet characters. I even fucking watch Jeff Donovan. Jeff Donovan's low-key awful. But I will watch I will watch a lot of things with puppets in them. Not most things, but a lot of things. Because it reaches back to my childhood and things I liked. And as an adult, it reaches into the Muppets. Which the Muppets are very much enjoyable. Very much a part of, like, my life. But this movie kind of shits on that. But not shits on it in we're making fun of it. This movie I feel like it's trying to live up to that legacy. Trying to live up to the legacy of the Muppets and of Sesame Street, and trying to do something new with it. But it fails miserably. And I would say the major thing that this movie lacks, that's different from all those other, like the other puppet related things like the Muppets and Sesame Street is that this movie lacks charm. There's no charm. It doesn't make you smile. It doesn't really make you laugh. It just, everything it sets out to do, it does not do well enough to justify it. Which is a shame. Because I would like to see more. I would have loved to see more of this world. I would have loved to see what this could have been very funny. I would love to see more of this world. It very much reminded me of the movie Bright. How I felt coming out of the movie, not coming out, but after watching the movie Bright on Netflix. And if you haven't gone see, if you've seen Bright, you know what you would know what I'm saying. But after I saw Bright, which also has a very similar premise to this movie, to Happytime Murders. But after I stopped watching Bright, I was like, that movie wasn't that good. I want to see more of this world. I would have liked to see more of this, more of the world of Happytime Murders, but the movie wasn't good. If there's more of this, it should be a show. This movie should have been a TV show, so they could have drawn out the plot, punched up the comedy so the jokes would land, but drawn out the plot, built the world a little bit, made me care about the characters more. And it worked on the charm, but but this movie was rushed, and that made it not great. So, as I stated earlier, if you want to go see it, wait. If you're a fan of puppets and stuff, just wait. Just wait till it comes out on Netflix, comes out in Redbox. It's not something you should go spend the extra money on to go see it in theaters. I was even hoping that it would be one of those, after I got into it, I was hoping that maybe it's one of those movies that is so bad it's good. Like, maybe it's going to be so terrible that it will make me feel like, oh, well, I at least enjoyed it because it was so bad. No. It was not bad enough to be so bad it's good. It was just kind of bad. So, like I said, wait on it if you want to go see it. If not, skip it. From a film enthusiast, definitely skip it. From a Muppet fan, skip it. However, if you do want to see more adult-centered puppet stuff, and adult-centered puppet stuff sounds like I'm talking about porn. I'm not talking about puppet porn. If you're into that, hey, I don't kink shame. That's you. If you are felty, that's fine. And that's probably a thing, right? Felty. Anyway. But if you want to see more adult-themed puppet stuff, then, like I said, wait and see it when it comes out on Redbox or Netflix. Also, if you want to see more adult-centered puppet stuff, while it's not like raunchy or over the top, but a few years ago there was a primetime Muppet show that was in a similar style to The Office, which I thought was pretty great before it got canceled. That show did not find its audience. I don't think it knew what audience. I don't think ABC, because it was on ABC, I don't think ABC knew what audience they wanted to give that show, whether they should market it to children or adults. Should have been marketed to adults, and went, but it just did not. So they canceled it before it could actually grow. But it was more adult themed. The jokes landed. It was funny. Go find that. Go check that out. I think it's just called The Muppets, but it's very similar. It was very similar in style to The Office and Community. Not Community. Parks and Rec. Yeah. So if you like those shows and you want more adult themed puppet stuff, go find that Muppet show. It was good. But Happytime Murders, not good. No bueno. So, hey, Ryan Henson, I love you, man. I love what you did. I love how you kept your father's name and legacy alive. But this was a mistake. try again? Question mark? Like, try again. Take your time. Make it a show. Bring it down a bit. You know, I really feel like Ryan Henson was passionate about it. I feel like it's something that he wanted to do, but it just did not work. And that's the end of my review. It's like 4 out of 10. The movie doesn't work. And with that, this has been Keem with the Out of Voices Reviews, and I am out.